Before there is a map of Middle-earth, the canon gives us something harder to paint: music before land. The first page of the history is not Beleriand, not Númenor, not the Shire, not a mountain line running down the spine of the world. It is the Ainulindalë, the music of the Ainur, where the world exists first as theme, then as vision, then as AR, the world that is. The order is simple enough to keep in the margin. First the music is given, then Melkar's discord enters it, then the vision shows what the music has made, then AR is spoken into being. Every later plate begins inside that first hearing. The trees of Valinor, the Silmarils, the hidden city of Gondolin, the island of Númenor, and the field where Sauron falls are seen later, but the history first arrives as music. Tolkien later described this as a cosmogonical myth, a story about the relation of the one to the powers who enter the world. The story begins there, in the place before landscape, where the atlas is still silent enough to hear its own making. The first page has no land on it yet, because the first geography of Arda is not drawn in ink but sung. The canon begins with Eru, the one called Iluvatar in Arda. Before the world, before time as the children will know it, he makes the Ainur the holy ones, and the text names them as the offspring of his thought. They are spirits before the physical world, made by Iluvatar before anything else in this story is made. The later Vala will be those among the Ainur who enter AR and become the powers of the world. The world itself does not come from them. It is made real by Iluvatar's command. At first, the Ainur sing singly or in small groups, while the rest listen. Each understands only the part of Iluvatar's mind from which that Ainu came. The beginning is not a perfect choir, but a field of partial knowledge, voices beautiful in themselves, not yet fully joined. The growth begins through listening. As the Ainur hear one another, the text says they increase in unison and harmony. Separate voices begin apart, then answer one another, until color and sound gather into one shared light. No single line carries the whole design. Then Iluvatar calls them together and declares a mighty theme. The source says the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amaze them. They bow and fall silent before the scale of what has been given. Inside that silence, Iluvatar does not hand them a finished world and ask for admiration. He gives a theme and invites them to adorn it, each with their own powers and thoughts. Creation in this story is not mechanical manufacture, it is commanded harmony with room for sub-creative answer. The great music begins, and the text imagines it with instruments because instruments are the nearest earthly grammar for something that is not earthly at all. Harps, pipes, trumpets, viols, organs, and countless choirs. The details are not quaint. They make the first architecture of the world out of layered sound. The music passes beyond hearing into depths and heights, and its echo goes outward into the void. The source gives a brief, strange result. The void is no longer merely void. The dark central wash begins to carry grain, current, and direction. At the same time, the story has already set a boundary around making. Iluvatar has kindled the Ainur with the flame imperishable, but the flame is not theirs to possess. It remains with him. Melkar, greatest in power and knowledge among the Ainur, goes often alone into the void places seeking that flame. The canon is exact about the desire. He wants to bring into being things of his own. He is impatient with emptiness. He does not find it. The fire is with Iluvatar, and the private thoughts Melkar conceives in solitude do not become creation. They become the pressure that enters the song. The music is still beautiful, still vast, still the first grammar of the world. At its edge, one voice has begun to mistake gift for possession and emptiness for an insult. Melkar interweaves matters of his own imagining into the music. The phrasing carries the danger. He does not merely sing strongly or differently or with a bold color in the harmony. He inserts a private design that is not in accord with Iluvatar's theme, seeking to increase the glory of the part assigned to himself. The discord spreads as some near him grow despondent. Their thought is disturbed and their music falters. Others begin to tune themselves to Melkar rather than to the theme they first received. The danger is not a tidy duel. It moves by contamination. One thought falters, another bends toward Melka, and the first theme begins to lose listeners. The canon gives the first great image of evil in Arda as a storm of sound, turbulent, self-warring, endless in wrath. It is loud, but not deep, unified, but not truly harmonious. Melka can gather noise around himself, yet he cannot give that noise the being he wanted from the flame. Iluvatar answers first by raising his left hand. A new theme begins amid the storm. It is like the first theme and unlike it, gathering power and a new beauty. The answer does not erase the discord by pretending it never entered the music. It sounds through it. Melka rises again, and the war of sound grows more violent. Many of the Ainur are dismayed and fall silent. For a time, the text says, Melka has the mastery. The second theme reaches its narrowest point when loudness begins to look like victory. It is not the end of the contest. The repeated notes beat on the air until clamor starts to imitate order. Then Iluvatar raises his right hand, and a third theme grows in the confusion. The source describes it at first as soft and sweet. It is delicate, but it cannot be quenched. It gathers power and profundity as it goes. The third theme is not just another louder answer. Its beauty is bound to sorrow. In the late text, that detail becomes one of the first great signatures of Middle-earth. The most durable beauty in the legendarium is not weightless. It carries grief without being defeated by it. At last there are two musics before Iluvatar. One is deep, wide, beautiful, and slow, blended with immeasurable sorrow. The other is loud, vain, endlessly repeated, and thin in harmony. The deeper music settles like layered ground beneath the vision. The discord cuts across it like rigid metal laid over living terrain. The decisive movement is not that Melka falls silent. It is that his most triumphant notes are taken by the other and woven into its own solemn pattern. The rebellion remains real, and the pain it introduces will be real, but it does not become sovereign. Iluvatar rises a third time. The halls shake. The tremor runs into silences that had not yet moved. He raises both hands, and the music ceases in one chord. The next speech gives the music its hardest boundary. Iluvatar tells Melka that no theme has its uttermost source outside him, and that any attempt to alter the music against him becomes an instrument in devising things the rebel did not imagine. Melka is filled with shame, and from that shame comes secret anger. The first face of the enemy is not yet the Dark Lord in Angband, not yet Morgoth with the Iron Crown, but a wounded will that cannot bear to be derivative. There is also a manuscript seam here. Earlier versions make the music's taking shape and becoming real more immediate. The late form followed here gives the process three clear movements: music, vision, AR. In that form, the page turns from hearing to sight. The silence after the chord is not emptiness. It is the stillness before sight enters the story. Iluvatar goes forth from the fair regions he has made for the Ainur, and they follow him into the void. The scene shifts from performance to revelation. They are about to see what they have sung. Iluvatar gives them the line that turns sound into sight. Behold your music. The source says he gives them vision where before there had been only hearing. Hearing gives way to sight. They see a new world made visible before them, globed amid the void and sustained there, though not of it. As they watch, the world begins to unfold its history. It seems to live and grow. The Ainur receive the first sight of Arda. They see what was, what is, and what is to come, but not all things. Iluvatar has not revealed everything, and in every age there are things that come forth new. The Vala will know much, but they will never be omniscient curators of a finished plan. Then the Ainur see something they had not made, the children of Iluvatar. The text names them elves and men, the firstborn and the followers. They come with the third theme, and none of the Ainur has part in their making. The habitation prepared for them may seem small beside the vast halls of the world, but the Ainur bend their thought and desire toward it. Arda becomes precious to them not because it is large, but because free beings other than themselves will live there. Here the same site divides service from possession. The powers bend toward Arda because the children will live there. Melkor looks toward the same habitation and desires mastery over elves and men. The older text says he claims a wish to order the violence he has caused, while intending to usurp the realms of the Ainur. The vision moves through the substances of the world: light, color, wind, earth, metal, sea. Of these, the Ainur most greatly praise water. The source says that in water there lives the echo of the music more than in any other substance in the earth. Ulmo had turned his thought most to water and was most deeply instructed by Iluvatar in music. Manwë had pondered airs and winds. Aule had thought on the fabric of earth, the matter of stone, metal, and making. Here they remain at the edge of the page. Their fuller labor belongs to later plates. The older form of the passage gives the water sequence its first weather. Melkor's cold and fire do not abolish Ulmo's realm. Snow, frost, cloud, vapor, and falling rain enter the design, and water is drawn nearer to Manwë's heirs. Then the vision is taken away. The Ainur had become enamored of it, and the loss reveals a new thing to them: darkness, not as an idea, but as an experience. The world they loved is gone from sight, and the history shown to them is incomplete. Iluvatar answers their desire with command. The short-quoted anchor is Ar, let these things be. A far light appears in the void, and the Ainur know that this is no vision only. The world has been made real. Some of the Ainur remain with Iluvatar beyond the world. Others, and among them many of the greatest and most fair, take leave and descend into it. These are named the Vala, the powers of the world, and their power is now contained and bounded in the world until it is complete. They do not enter a finished paradise. The text says they are at first astounded and at a loss, because nothing has yet been made as they saw it in the vision. The world is dark and unshaped. The music was the flowering of thought, the vision was a foreshadowing, and now the Vala stand at the beginning of time, where what was foreshadowed must be achieved. So the first labor of Arda begins. Manwë, Ulmo, and Aule take the chief part, while Melkor is there from the first, meddling in what is done and turning it, if he can, toward his own desires. The discord has crossed from sound into history. The canon sends the close back to water, before the crown, the sword, the mountain, or the city can hold the page. The first material echo of the music is not in a city or a throne room. It is in the sea, in rain, in cloud, in the sound that later children will hear without knowing why they listen. Before Gondolin has its hidden valley, before Númenor has its star-shaped island, before the ring goes into the fire, the world keeps a memory of the music in motion. Coastlines, labels, and rivers come later, when the world has shape enough to be drawn. Beneath that later geography sits an older grammar, a score, a vision, and a word that made the world real. The next page begins inside that made world, when the powers labor in darkness and light, has to be brought into Arda.